These are the faces of the determined and committed founders of the United Church of Canada. The Methodists, the Congregationalists, the local Union churches of Western Canada, and 2/3 of the Presbyterians came together in 1925 to form a new church, the United Church of Canada. Its first service was held in an arena with 10,000 people, its union sanctioned by an Act of Parliament, even though Prime Minister Mackenzie King, a strong Presbyterian, personally opposed the legislation. Created by passion and struggle, the new church was determined to reach out. In 1928, it created the Missionary and Maintenance Fund, now one of the oldest charitable funds in Canada. In 1970, the name was changed to the Mission and Service Fund, and its logo was developed in 1994. In 1929, when the United Church was only 4 years old, Nellie McClung, an activist in church circles, along with 4 other women, won the case that declared women as persons. Then came the crash. The economic fabric of the country collapsed, and the western dust storms blew. The strong fever of prairie socialism spread through the churches as they faced the despair of their members and the inaction of their governments. In 1933, the United Church National Relief Committee sent 9 million pounds of fruits and vegetables to the western farmers. In the East, Toronto Conference called for the regulation of the banking sector in 1933. The banks were not amused. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, Deaconess Stella Burry personally visited over 200 United Church families on welfare and organized 40 volunteers to teach sewing, cooking, and nutrition classes. And in a highly controversial move, the United Church voted to ordain women. Lydia Grucci, who had doggedly served a 6-point charge in Saskatchewan, was ordained in 1936. It would be decades before other denominations followed. World War II pulled Canadians from the jaws of depression into a new crisis. Most of the United Church membership supported the war effort. 323 ministers enlisted, 3 were killed, and 19 were decorated. Women poured into the factories and offices. Churches became the dance halls and canteens for a generation off to fight. In British Columbia, the church faced a painful task: organizing congregations for the hundreds of Japanese Canadians placed in internment camps. The United Church worked with other churches to find jobs for the displaced people, fight for compensation for the lost property, and set up schools for the children in the camps, all the while protesting the violation of human rights. The post-war years for the church run in fast forward. Churches became involved in the reconstruction of Europe and Japan. A delegation of the United Church traveled to Amsterdam for the inauguration of the World Council of Churches in 1948, and they chose to spend their time meeting people from the new uniting churches of China, India, and Japan, forging links that remain today. In Canada, the population boomed. Suburban communities exploded. Churches were being built at an astonishing rate, and they filled up and overflowed quickly. The church launched significant mission work in Canada, a little navy of ships that served people along the BC coast and in Newfoundland and Labrador. Churches in mining towns and inner-city missions dealing with a new generation of homeless men, many of them veterans, whose war now raged inside them. The United Church moved into the media. It created its own production facility to make and distribute radio programs and television films to private broadcasters and to the CBC. 30 years later, it underwrote the creation of Vision TV, the world's first multi-faith television network. And the church's magazine, The Observer, is a highly regarded and award-winning publication that offers an affectionate and critical lens on the church's work. But as the 1950s turned into the 1960s, the church was one of the first groups to denounce the buildup of American forces in faraway Vietnam, and eventually gave money to groups assisting draft dodgers and took part in public protests. In Sunday schools, there was a new curriculum that shocked some people with its broad interpretations of the Bible stories. More women came forward for ordination, and married women were finally allowed to be ordained. The church was changing its mission focus. Rather than sending missionaries to countries it thought needed help, the church waited to be asked, a radical departure from the past. And it continued to walk into the halls of power even when it wasn't invited. The church took on corporations, political decisions. It began to make links with other faiths, notably the Jewish community, even as it argued that the solution to the Middle East had to include the Palestinians. The leadership of the United Church, in the person of our moderator, has reflected the diversity of Canadian society and of the church itself. For example, in 1980, the church elected its first woman moderator, Lois Wilson, who went on to be the first Canadian president of the World Council of Churches. And Stan Mackay, elected in 1992 as our first Aboriginal moderator. In the 1980s, the church began to recognize that it needed to mend its relation with Aboriginal people. In 1986, the church apologized to Native people for its bulldozing mission efforts and its role in residential schools. And the church continues to work on reconciliation and healing for both sides. Late in the 1980s, its most divisive issue shook the church. The church voted that sexual orientation was no longer a barrier to becoming a minister. Congregations split. Friendships ended. It plunged the church into an emotional crisis that lasted a decade. But in 2003, when the church voted in favor of same-sex marriage, the vote was overwhelming. The United Church of Canada is proud of its history, its openness, and its commitment to making the world a more just place for everyone. We believe we are called by God to live fully and faithfully in the world. Come and join us, and dare to be part of something greater.